Endgame's converged endpoint security platform is transforming security programs, their people, processes, and technology with the most powerful endpoint protection and simplest user experience, ensuring analysts of any skill level can stop targeted attacks before information theft. Endgame unifies prevention, detection, and threat hunting to stop known and unknown attacker behaviors at scale with a single agent. For more information, visit endgame.com. Organizations' internal networks are overly permissive and can't distinguish trusted from untrusted applications. Attackers abuse this condition to move laterally through networks, bypassing address-based controls to spread malware. Edgewise abstracts security policies away from traditional network controls that rely on IP addresses, ports, and protocols, and instead ties controls directly to applications. Edgewise allows organizations to analyze the network attack surface and segment workloads based on the software and how it's communicated. Edgewise monitors applications and protects data paths using zero trust segmentation. Visit edgewise.net/security weekly to get your free month of visibility. Some restrictions apply. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/PSW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly, where we need bourbon or something. I need to switch to bourbon at some point.
All right. How about now?
Like yeah, like now. Or scotch? I think we have scotch. No, we have scotch. Yeah.
We have scotch and bourbon.
Yeah, scotch.
Whichever.
Scotch
I
poured
that entire glass full of bourbon, so I...
Oh, you're going to share?
He's like, over my cold dead body.
What is announcement? Patrick Laverty will be presenting pen testing tips, tricks, and stories with Aaron Herndon at B-Sides Connecticut 2018.
Nice.
That still says 2019. That'd be next year. Ticket sales are open. It's Saturday. It's this Saturday, November 3rd. I think a couple of the Security Weekly folks are going to go. I don't think I can make it this weekend, but
I was going to say I haven't been home in like 4 weeks, so
right, yeah,
nope,
Hey, might be in trouble.
Yeah.
But bsidesct.org, tickets are $20. You should definitely go. Have you been to B-Sides Connecticut before, Larry? Did you come with us one year?
Yeah, it wasn't
first year.
It wasn't B-Sides CT. It was.
Yeah, it was Will's conference, right?
Yeah. It was like Ilmob Con or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I forget what it was. Yeah.
Yep. And then we went. Yep.
That was fun.
That was a blast.
Absolutely.
It was a blast.
Everyone should go.
I spoke. You spoke. You and John
we all
spoke.
It was
Yeah.
I didn't
because I remember you had the one with the like the knife on the stabby stick thing, the automated stabbing stick. That was the presentation. What was that?
What was that?
It was like the hacking back. It was the
with an axe. Something about with an axe. There was a presentation I had. It was IoT. I think
it was the precursor to like hacking back, which turned into active countermeasures, which turned into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it was. It was not embedded device. It was a hacking back talk. Yes. Good memory, Larry.
Wow. Like a steel trap. Rusty and jammed wide open.
Wow. That's a vivid description of your memory, Larry.
It is.
We made an announcement today.
We did.
What?
Which is awesome.
Wait, you made an announcement?
Did you see the press? Did
anybody see that beautiful press release I wrote?
There was a press release?
There was a press release. It was awesome.
Holy cow, we did a press release.
I'm being coy.
It was, it was the first time we issued a press release, and I thought like there was a whole bunch of like magic sauce behind the press release.
There is.
But it's not really that magic. Like you pay this website, like what was it, like $50, and they put out the press release for you. I was like, wow, that was like,
dude, you paid $50.
Well, it was,
because we wanted beautiful pictures of ourselves on it, and
there's free ones that you can do that with, and then you can spend like $1,500 and get it like the fancy PR service. But I
was gonna say because I own a domain name, pressrelease.ninja.
Oh, so I just give you my credit card, Larry?
Yeah,
and then we can send the press release out.
Totes legit.
Totally legit.
Slide your card here.
Not legit.
So Matt Alderman has joined
today.
Security Weekly officially as the CEO. That doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. That just means the CEO responsibility. So now it's Matt.
Just means you're going places.
It means
The joke's on Matt.
It comes this way. Yeah, I was warned about that, by the way. Ron warned me. He goes, when you get into that role, you can never leave.
That's right. You're stuck here and dealing with the security industry side of it, but it's good. I'll be the CTO, much more focused on security research in the community side of security in the security community. So that's going to be awesome. But it's very much like a yin and yang kind of thing, right? I've been doing the business stuff for almost 14 years now, right? And
right.
I was like, wow, I should probably get someone on the team that can help with that. And the directions that we wanted to go was very strategic. So, Matt's focus is the security industry and business side. My focus is the technology side, but we can each cover for each other in each of those respective areas. So,
unless we're getting into Python backdoors and
there are limits in each of
I have
our
limits. I do have limits
abilities.
Technically, yes.
I can only do so many sales calls and briefings calls in a given day, and right now I've reached my max, which is great news for Security Weekly. And believe me, while I'll complain that it's really difficult for me to sit through that many briefings and sales calls in a day, we could have the opposite problem, which is we have no sales calls or briefing calls in a given day.
That's true.
Which would be a way worse problem to deal with. So,
right, exactly.
It was a glorious day today. We made the announcement, and that's kind of the high-level mission for Security Weekly moving forward.
Yeah, we want to help both the industry and the community and bring them together and continue to bring them together. And I'll focus more on the industry side and my background on the commercial and the work that I've done with a lot of security companies over the years, and even in my advisory work. And then Paul will focus more on making sure technical segments are great, content's great, and the rest of the things that we need to do for the shows. So yeah, it'll be great.
In fact, Larry and I were just talking before the show. He's like, "Well, you've got time for some of that stuff now." I was doing some stuff with Feedly and collaboration on the host and various stories that we're flagging and tracking all the tech news. And
I think my answer was, look at you, Mr. CTO.
Right.
Setting a vision and doing some work. And
now I'll have more time to focus on that stuff, which would be great.
And you know what I'll do? I'll continue to show up, submit stories, and drink booze and eat pizza.
Yeah. Part of how he bribed me to come over was he goes, you can have as many cigars and liquor as you want.
That's actually in your contract.
It is my contract. You come into studio, you can smoke as many cigars as you like.
Drink as much. It's all good.
We bought a few bottles. They're sitting over there. We
appreciate
that bottle of Ciroc is about half gone after the martinis today. So we're doing a good job. We're on pace.
We're on pace.
We're tracking.
That's a good thing because that bar was getting a little thin.
Yeah,
it was.
Metrics and goals. Must drink a certain amount of vodka, smoke so many cigars.
So many cigars, otherwise we are not hitting our metrics, folks. That's just the way we're going to roll. I told the team today, I said, buckle up, we're on a ride. I don't know if it's up or down yet, but we're going to have fun along the way.
There's no ride involved, all right?
Might be side to side a little bit.
Could be.
Fun stuff.
Won't hit the bottom, but it'll sure fuck up the sides pretty good.
Oh, Larry.
Yep.
Nothing is. If you think the culture is going to change, folks, because I'm here, don't count on it.
Well, I mean, in all seriousness, that played it. Everyone's like, "What's going to happen when Matt's CEO?" Like, I'm like, nothing's going to change. Like, the culture is part of our success,
right? And it's part of the reason I'm here.
It's part of Security Weekly.
You and I have been doing this kind of off and on for a few years when we were at Tenable and coming into studio. Anybody who's not been in studio, you got to come to studio if you get an opportunity. The ability to come in here and do a show, there's nothing like it to me, right? It just the culture of what's here, the people. If you want to have fun and get your stuff across, this is the best place to do it. Yeah, you can do it remote, and remote works, but it's so much more fun here. So anybody who wants to do a segment and try to get into Rhode Island, try to get into studio, the experience, you'll never forget the experience. And that is something I learned very early on when we were doing this.
And I try to get that across to
you hear that, Lee?
Prospective clients and even existing sponsors, and they don't fully realize it until they actually come in studio. I'm like, no, this is like it's not like a stuffy, come talk about your product kind of thing, right? Or, we bring people from the community, like, don't be nervous. Like, we're going to, the goal is not to be the journalist kind of outfit, right? The goal is to educate the community, whether it's from a sponsor or from the community, wherever. The goal is to educate the community. Fun, entertaining environment will help you. We want the community to learn and grow along with us. So.
And are you wearing yoga pants?
No, these are these new like Adidas pants that are kind of fitted. Next week, you know what, Larry? I'll wear yoga pants next week for you.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
because
Thank God I'm not here next week.
I mean, we're totally relaxed in the studio. And I'm like, is Paul wearing fucking yoga pants?
No, they're Adidas. They're just pulled up. Stop checking me out so much, Larry. Good Lord. Focus on the show.
I am. I'm focusing on that leg show.
I know it's a smoke show and all, but anyway, we got some stories.
We do
to talk about.
Where are we going to start? We have a lot of stories. We're going to be here a while, folks. I'm going to run out of my martini before.
I know. I need more booze too to get through these stories. Yes, I need some scotch, please, when you get a chance.
Yeah, make that 2 neat. Yeah, neat. Please.
One of my favorite things to do is to pick on surveys. But this one's by NetSparker, and they're a sponsor, so I can't really pick on it. But
I mean, but now you can't pick on it, but can we?
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at it. I think it's aspects of what's in here is like it's no-brainer.
I think the core research in many of these surveys is oftentimes really good. I think that the way even the internal marketing teams, the way they spin it is also really good. It's when the other media tech people get a hold of it that like aren't as technical as we are. They tend to just get it all wrong and put kind of spins on it and try and make it more sensational than it really is. And I mean, I think for a lot of us technical folks too, when we see that web security stats show that cross-site scripting and outdated software are major problems, we're kind of like the first thing we think of is, well, we already knew that. What we don't understand is how many people who are in defensive roles in the enterprise today need that data to highlight some of the things they may already know or just may think that since we've got an SDLC, cross-site scripting and SQL injection, these outdated flaws are no longer an issue when they really are. So
and this comes down to the consultant problem too. Is that you guys, in an organization, will be doing things about a pen test, and you'll be telling the organization, "Hey, we have to do X, Y, or Z." And they said, nah, it's not really a problem. And then pen tester comes in and it exploits X, Y, and Z. And then they see the report and like, oh, we got to do X, Y, and Z. And you've been telling them that for the whole time. Same sort of thing is that sometimes these surveys are very much we've been telling you we need to do these things. We need to fix these problems. And now there's this study, there's this thing that has confirmed exactly what I've said that we need to do.
We talked about
from
this,
a third party.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit on Enterprise Security Weekly yesterday. Outdated and vulnerable software is still a major web application security risk. It's still a major risk everywhere. It's not just web apps. I mean, we're just not patching our stuff effectively. So we have a lot of outdated software that has known vulnerabilities in it. There's known exploits in the wild for this stuff. This isn't a surprise. And what I think we're going to continue to see is as we continue to move forward with DevOps and just the speed of the way applications are being built nowadays, this is a huge problem because DevOps teams are deploying code not just daily anymore, sometimes multiple times a day. If we're not dealing with outdated and vulnerable software, this problem only gets worse as we continue. The cross-site scripting one surprised me a little bit, just because I don't really track that part of it that well.
I think the two things. Thank you. The cross-site scripting it lives in different aspects of web applications that you wouldn't consider. Also, since it comes from NetSparker, one of the reasons why we love NetSparker as a sponsor is because they are very accurate when they scan. And this data comes from, their scanning systems and their scanning of multiple customers. Therefore, for me, I have a much higher degree of confidence because I personally tested NetSparker. We spend a lot of time with their developers. They come on the show. You can obviously see there's a very talented group of people, but also their product to me was the most accurate. And I tested a lot of, in fact, it was when Matt and I were working together, I tested a lot of web app scanners,
yes, a lot of them.
And I told Matt, like, dude, I like NetSparker, the best. And I think it was around that time that they actually became a sponsor because I was like, your technology rocks. And I tell you what, and I won't say who they are, but I've tested other solutions more recently. Some of the same ones I tested some time ago, and I'm like, yeah, just like not even, I can't even move forward with these at all.
Well, our original recommendation back in the day was
Netsparker.
By Netsparker.
Yeah.
Right? And then we looked at potentially an OEM agreement, and then we did a few other things, and we ended up, Tenable ended up buying Arachne and building their own, but their product works really, really well. Then these are valid results because we know their scanner is one of the best when it comes to dynamic testing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where we're I mean, if you're going to do dynamic scanning, we do recommend them, even though it's kind of a biased opinion now, right? But it's with good reason.
We've got the data to back it up.
Yeah. And they've got some great data in this report. So here I was ready to pick on a report, and it was from a trusted source. So
it was good.
It was good.
Nice.
We go into AWS and Lambda. I love this one.
Yeah, let's talk about this one.
So I actually saw him present.
I've got scotch, so I'm just going to pass it down.
Yeah, scotch.
I can't drink
Scotch.
No, he's
three
brought
glasses.
three. Yeah, nice.
By myself.
All right.
You notice Paul kept the biggest glass for himself.
Of course. Why not?
CTO privilege.
Owner privilege.
Chief tasting officer.
Chief tasting officer, yes.
So I actually saw him present at SANS Secure DevOps in Denver. He went like...
Who's this now?
Ori? Yeah, Segal from PureSec.
PureSec, okay.
Yeah, so he actually presented...
Hey, he's a CTO too.
Yeah, he presented at SANS Secure DevOps in Denver last week.
Oh, yeah.
I presented the same day. He presented before lunch. I went after lunch. This was an extremely enlightening session on the misconfiguration issues in Lambda that allows you to exploit Lambda functions literally through email. He did a demo live of exploiting Lambda functions in AWS simply with sending email back and forth. There's a number of things here with privileges in Lambda and other things, and he just showed where all these flaws were and how you could literally just exploit the functions with simple email
Is that because the web application accepted email, or?
You just used Gmail and was just sending stuff to these functions and bypassing privileges and other things in Lambda that you just need to know how to secure. And so this article talks about a lot of the issues with Lambda in general when it comes to functions and why the configurations of Lambda are so important, because if you don't lock it down, all this stuff is possible, and it's really easy to exploit. It was just a fantastic talk. I was just mesmerized. I'm just watching him going, he dumped the entire database out of S3 through a Lambda function exploit using email. I mean, that literally sent him all the data back in email. It was super
Was there
cool.
applause? Because I haven't seen attacks like that before, and I think this represents the next wave of
so
web application attacks.
Lambda and serverless functions and all this stuff are the rave, but you have to understand how to configure this stuff and secure it so that some of these exploits can't happen. And he just demonstrated through this talk kind of where all these holes were. And this article gets into great details, brings out a lot of the stuff he was in his talk last week. And I mean, just anybody who's out starting to look at Lambda functions, just think about the configuration of Lambda, how you can lock down the permissions in Lambda just to prevent some of these attacks from happening. This is a really good article.
Yeah, serverless is amazing technology, and I think, much like I was looking at containers, and we start to see a lot more traction in container security, obviously with, one of the reasons why Matt is actually here at Security Weekly, qualifying Layered Insight, that serverless is going to be the next thing that we start talking about, these really cool attacks. I mean, it's all based on the same foundation, just the execution is different. And much like newer technologies, I think enterprises are sometimes quick to adopt them without fully considering how do I apply my security practices to them, because there's not much in the way of documentation. And I think a lot of people search for best practices, but there isn't even security practices really defined or being talked about other than Ori's talk. Right?
Yeah, and I think the challenge here is your traditional security tools have no insight into Lambda.
No.
They have nothing. I mean, if you think you're going to install an agent in Lambda, you're mistaken, right? I mean, it's just not going to happen, right? And so
there are a TiVo, the deception vendor, can actually put deceptive functions inside of Lambda.
Yeah,
which, I mean,
it's a function, right?
It's a piece
but you got to
of the
do it as a function.
It's a piece of the picture, right? I mean, we can't defend any single network or asset with deception. It's an important, I think, now becoming an important piece of the puzzle. I think it is an important piece of the puzzle today, but it doesn't help you configure. You still have to make sure you're configuring it correctly so that when you have those deceptive functions in there, you have a process and it's part of your architecture. Don't think you can have no security architecture and just go, I'm going to put deceptive functions in there. Like, there needs to be infrastructure around that for detection, response, and configuration management, which I think the problem is the skill set is so weak in that area, that how do we get people trained up to know how to properly configure your serverless environment?
Yeah, agreed. And we were actually had a lot of conversations with AWS and Layered Insight about how could we put some of our protections. If you ran your Lambda functions in a container, then you could embed the Layered Insight
Lambda
stuff.
functions in a container.
Yeah, so you could wrap the functions in a container, I guess. And then there was a lot of discussions about, how could we do that? Because even Amazon's looking at solutions to help secure aspects of that environment as well. Because Layered Insight ran inside the container, if you ran the functions inside of a container in Lambda, then some of our technology would actually port into that environment because we were embedded in the container. Right. So there was some interesting conversations. It's something that AWS is looking at, but there were some just fundamental things in the Lambda configurations that you could have done also just to prevent some of these attacks that he presented last week. I thought it was great.
Let's see. Employee used U.S. government network for adult websites in infected infrastructure with Russian malware.
Now,
Lee, do you want to comment on this one?
Does this relate to story number 12 as well, where federal employees porn infects government network with malware?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think it's the same thing.
Adult websites, porn,
it's amazing
it's
that
equivalent.
works. I mean, it's like the forbidden fruit. You're not allowed to do porn on a government machine, so therefore what do people try and do is porn.
Yeah. I mean, we saw this at the university. I mean, just looking on the surface of, and especially with government networks too, anytime you give people computing power and technology coupled with really large bandwidth, right, access to the internet, it's kind of like a recipe for, well, I can just host my adult website here on the university and everything will be fine.
Was it hosting or?
No, I think it was just viewing.
Oh, was it viewing?
I think it was just viewing. I don't even think it was hosting it. I think it was just they were out viewing it and getting infected with Russian malware.
Oh, well, that's a much easier problem to address than
You might think.
You might think.
Where was their boundary protection? Why could they even access those sites?
Right? I mean, yeah, limiting access to those sites is pretty. I mean, unless the person's going through great lengths to view it. Which,
well, the first story
we
was.
Know those I mean, we've all seen those bypass.
Yeah.
I mean, Larry and I would manage those systems at different organizations that would share stories about the lengths people would go through to get around the porn filters. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I've been on a test where we had to do. Data exfiltration, and for example, one of them was data exfil via Twitter, and you go to http twitter.com and it was blocked, but if you did https twitter.com, it was fine. So doing content management and stuff like that, and border protection, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
So this was the U.S. Geological Survey's Earth Resource Observation and Science Center satellite imaging facility in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Oh, near the Black Hills, guys. 9,000 different adult websites that were visited, and that's supposedly where the infections came from.
Only 9,000?
Only 9,000. I'm sorry. I didn't even know there were 9,000. Holy cow.
That was one guy.
Or girl.
On a Tuesday.
Guy or
well, employee. One employee.
One employee.
One employee on a Tuesday.
Oh, he was busy.
On a blue moon.
Busy.
In an even year. Yeah.
This next one's for you, because
yeah, Larry, tell me about the Bluetooth vulnerabilities expose Wi-Fi APIs to
APs. So I'd argue.
Oh, Wi-Fi APs. Sorry.
Yeah. So depending on there's 2 vulnerabilities included with Bleedingbit, and I've got a story on here as well from the Hacker News on this. So there are 2 from Armis who discovered Blueborn last year, which was the set of 9 zero-day Bluetooth-related stuff in Android, Windows, and Linux and iOS.
That was Blueborn.
That was Blueborn. Yep. This new one for Bleedingbit is Bluetooth low energy based, which is kind of interesting. And I need to go and dive into this because it's interesting how the how this is working together and which one's the advertising and which one isn't, which is fine. There's 2. The first one is one that exists in Texas Instruments CC2640 chipset, in which there's a buffer overflow based on advertising beacons. So my low energy device is constantly beaconing, unlike Bluetooth Classic. Bluetooth Classic is only beaconing when it's in discoverable
low
mode.
energy is more like 802.11 in that respect.
In that respect, and that it is always beaconing on 3 separate channels all the time, and it's always beaconing. So the deal is with this one is that they send a standard beacon and then a second beacon with a specific flag turned on, which over allocates memory, and then you end up with buffer overflow. So, sorry, under allocates memory yet gives more data than needed.
I'm assuming the firmware for this chip is upgradable.
It is, but now think about this. In this particular case, they're targeting some access points from some pretty big name vendors.
Yeah, it says Cisco, Meraki, and Aruba.
Yes.
Which is HPE Aruba now.
Which are folks that are in the industry that have some really good respect and can push out firmware patches, and their customers will likely update them within some reasonable time frame. Think about the ubiquity, not ubiquity access points, but the ubiquity in the industry of the Texas Instruments CC2640. It's in a lot of stuff.
Oh, so it's not just in the bigger manufacturers.
It's not just in access points. It's going to be in client devices. It's going to be in IoT devices. It's going to be in all that.
It's cheap enough to use in consumer gear, in other words.
Yes, okay. It is very much cheap enough to use in maybe even a little bit higher end consumer gear. But absolutely, millions of those chips out there.
It's interesting because
how many of those are going to get patched?
The article just says. It flat out says they are used in Cisco, Meraki, and Aruba, but what you're saying is the problem's much deeper than that.
Absolutely.
That was just the major Wi-Fi access point, I think, vendors that were flagged in this article.
So this is like the Bluetooth Low Energy chip, in other words.
It is one of few.
Yeah.
And there's now when I say few, there's probably 10 to 20 that are reasonable. But Texas Instruments has a really good track record with wireless-based chipsets, and lots of folks.
Except for these vulnerabilities.
Well,
but,
I mean, that's in any case. The second vulnerability was in some additional Texas Instruments chips, including the 2642R2, the 2642R2, the 2640R2, the 2640, the 2650, the 2540, and the 2541, all from Texas Instruments. All varieties of their Bluetooth Low Energy chipset, which feature the ability to do over-the-air firmware updates, in which they exploit the over-the-air firmware update, over-the-air firmware download, or OAD.
And is that a case where they weren't validating the firmware?
It looks like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can put whatever firmware. Yep.
Yep.
So what you need to do at home is anything you think has Bluetooth Low Energy, you pop it open, and if you're old like me, you put your magnifier glasses on, and you look at the chip, and you look for those numbers, and then you know if you're vulnerable or not, potentially.
Or more importantly, if you're old like me and have already bad vision, you don't put the glasses on. You put on the little jeweler's jeweler's headset, and turn on all the lights. Yeah, that's me.
We have to do that now. It's really sad.
Right, Lee? Oh, you just muted yourself. You went the other way, Lee.
There we go. In spades, you got to do that.
Nice.
Hey, I use my Over 40 app whenever I need it. The lighted magnifier.
Nice. Yep. when you're doing small work like that. So
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
whole range of Texas Instruments chipsets vulnerable to either firmware, over-the-air firmware updates that aren't checking, or there's a buffer overflow condition in the beaconing, the advertisements in Bluetooth Low Energy. So I think this is actually kind of terrifying, and I need to go now update some SANS courseware.
Right?
Yep. That was my first reaction when I saw this. I'm like, crap, I just finished an update like 2 days ago. Now I got to do it again. But
That's the thing with courseware.
yep. Well, that's the amazing thing that as of just recently, we're seeing in my opinion, we're seeing a resurgence into all of these technologies. And I wonder if that's due to the presence of IoT in home devices. Speaking of IoT, Paul, tell us about the Google Home thing.
Oh, so apparently through some flaw, you can crash these devices and turn what the article claims, of course this comes from the register, into a doorstop. So there's a secret API, leaves the door open for remote commands, and it is an undocumented API, according to the article.
Jerry Gamblin, that name is familiar for some reason.
It is familiar. So the Google Home Hub's web-based software interface is the API that can essentially cut it off from the Wi-Fi network and make it inaccessible, which is kind of interesting. There's some command examples in there.
Right. So if I remember correctly, the first one we saw on this was issuing a reboot. You could do a curl command and issue a reboot by calling the reboot command. And now I guess that it's gone on to other commands that are available, including the ability to delete network interfaces.
And it can delete the network, so it can like forget the Wi-Fi, which is interesting. Like, and I'm not sure how this turns it into a doorstop, because in most Wi-Fi systems, there's some kind of like reset or something.
Yep. Or even a system like this, you reset to factory defaults.
Reset to factory defaults, or like in a lot of the IoT gear too. Like I just changed one of my friends. They had the default Verizon SSID and password, which was a really pain in the butt. So I changed the SSID and reset a new password. Of course, any of the IoT devices lose access to the Wi-Fi network. Now, in the case of the Nest, it's easy. It's got an interface on it, right? Yep. But the like Ring camera doesn't have an interface on it. So like, what do? You just like go push the. Boop. There's a button on the top of that one. You push that, it sets it off into like reset up mode, and you go in the app and you reassociate with it and put it on the Wi-Fi. Yep. So I don't know if that command through that undocumented API does something different that renders that recovery useless, or...
Now that said, depending on what you have access to for tools for some of that, so there's the first one, it's the reboot, and then delete network. So I suspect you could probably start doing other stuff. Like, can you call one of those commands and pipe the output, or send? I pipe the output to null and then concatenate yet another Unix command that it calls.
Right.
So that you could like DD the entire device with zeros, or could you could then you overwrite the bootloader so that now it truly is a brick?
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you know how the firmware is laid out on the flash chip, you can definitely delete the partition, right, that holds the bootloader, and that would definitely
turn it into a brick.
Potentially, because then your recovery methods are left to some kind of either clip or soldering iron into a JTAG or some other interface to rebuild that flash chip manually.
Or sending it back to Google.
If it even has that.
Sending it back to Google for a replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that evil. That's pretty evil.
That's my job, sorry.
I like it. I like it. And the whole thing, why would you have some undocumented API without authentication?
I wouldn't even argue it's an API. It's a function of their web server stuff.
That's just... Well, no, it says port 8008.
Yep, unauthenticated, mind you.
Yeah, it just goes back to that whole IoT security discussion we've had 1,000 times on the show.
Yeah,
and this is the part where I talk about Microsoft's Azure Sphere as One of the only projects, again, that I've seen that can actually provide you with a framework and an infrastructure to solve this problem.
Yep.
Yeah. Because likely it was there for some kind of debugging, right, and things like that.
Yep.
So
Paul, moving on, I've got Mr. Wood.
Mr.
I
Wood.
was going to say, if you go on to Jerry's blog post, which was referenced in the Register article, he actually has a fair bit more information here about things that could be done with it and data you're getting back from it. So worth checking out. And handy dandy nmaps command. So it's pretty cool.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Long,
all right.
but cool.
Yep. All right.
Wrong, but
Yeah,
cool.
this is going to be fun.
Right.
So, Paul, moving on, we have 3 other hosts on the call, at least.
Yes. Matt Toussaint's still here with us with his awesome camera.
I say you throw one of the other
and
3
lighting.
of them. I say you throw one of the other 3 of them under the bus to pick a story and discuss.
All right. Yeah. Someone else do the show.
Don't all fight.
Take it over.
Tell me about this ping of death, Larry.
Oh. Yeah. So you remember in the days of Windows 95 when you could issue that one ping command and would cause a blue screen of death on your Windows 95 box?
I think most of our listeners have heard my story about that.
Well, refresh my
Do I have
memory.
to tell it again?
TLDR?
So when I got to anonymize. So when I worked at a job sometime in my past, we worked in a building that there was a security guard. And we noticed the security guard was basically playing games on the computer all day long and not really doing much to help us in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So I also noticed that this particular machine was running Windows 95 or 98, whichever one was vulnerable to ping of death at the time. And I was like, oh, I got it. And I'm like, guys, watch this. And I worked with some of my friends at the time, and they're like, what are you doing, Paul? I'm like, watch. I'm like, I'm going to run this command on my computer. I'm like, then we're going to sneak over, and we're going to watch the security guard's reaction. And I'm like, watch. And I hit enter, and we'd run over, and we'd all go watch the security guard. I'm like, wait for it. And then his computer would blue screen. And he'd see him throw his hands up in the air, look under his keyboard, check the power cable, reboot it, and it come back on. And my friends were like, that was kind of funny. They're like, do it again. So I go over to my station, and we'd give him some time to let the game get started back up again. I go over, and I hit enter, we go peek over again. And he'd be even more animated, what is going on? This stupid computer's banging on his monitor. Yeah, it was awesome.
So I have a very similar story. S/security guard / administrative assistant.
Yeah.
Solitaire, the whole
Solitaire,
story.
yes.
Whole story, except not security guard, administrative assistant.
Yep.
Who was like a 70-year-old woman.
Good Lord.
Who had no concept about technology and
just wanted to play solitaire.
Yep.
And us hackers were just ruining their time playing solitaire.
Yep. And that was about the same time we discovered back orifice and put it on the instructor's computer in the computer labs at school. So when you're in in class, you could run back orifice and make the instructor's computer open and close a CD tray while they're trying to work and play Beavis and Butthead audio. Good times.
Okay, a note to our younger audience members, don't do this because it's really bad.
Yep.
We had permission to hack the network at the time.
Yes. Yeah. Had permission.
You did.
I'm sure you did.
Yes. Had permission. They left the machine. No, attended. No, I mean
Nope, we had permission.
we had permission.
Always get permission.
Yep. Yes.
You have LarryHasPermission.com, right?
He will. Oh, Lee just knows how to distract Larry during the show.
Nope. I'm pushing on 100 domain names. Stop.
Oh, you got to get to 150, Larry.
No. No. Oh, I got to put kids through college.
wow,
No.
It's an investment, Larry.
Has to be gigantic.
Actually, that was the argument I got from some of my coworkers yesterday. I said, so if there was this indie game that's actually a pretty good indie game about hacking, and it's all about hacking in this virtual world about this domain for the game company .net that they didn't register, would it be a dick move to register the domain name before their Kickstarter project finishes? And their answer was future investment. I'm like, well, shit.
101 domains.
Yes.
Hey, Larry, squirrel.
What? What? So you asked me about this ping of death thing. So very similar.
Oh yeah, what were we talking about?
Very similar type of thing in which a Apple's XNU operating system kernel, in which a malformed ICMP packet, if I remember correctly, I'm sorry, malicious IP packet to the IP address of the target device. IP, not just even ICMP, that send an IP packet to an Apple device and it crashes. You can send it to broadcast, and it doesn't even have to be for a valid port on a device, from my understanding. And boom.
And it worked with iOS, macOS.
Yep.
And,
yep. Everything.
I wonder if it'll work with WatchOS.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Let's see. Yep.
And the firewall doesn't do anything good unless you have it in stealth mode, according to one of the articles.
Correct.
Oh yeah, there was always great limitations on the firewall on, well, when it was OS 10 and now Mac OS.
Yep.
It would always accept like a certain amount of traffic by default. It was kind of like a half firewall.
Yeah, little snitch for the win.
Yeah.
Still. Little snitch for the win.
Absolutely. Yeah, I run little snitch as well.
Yep.
What was I going to say? Oh, I like attacks that you can send like one packet or spoof one particular service and own like a ton of computers. I love that.
That's my favorite.
Right? It's just so easy. And there was a vulnerability in
one and done.
Systemd's DHCP server. Did you see this one?
I briefly saw this one.
So the vulnerability was in the DHCP client, where if you had set up, it was IPv6, right? So if you set up a DHCP server that supports IPv6 and you sent a certain response to the clients, you could exploit some kind of heap or buffer overflow, I forget which, in the client, right? So my thing was, if you think about the way DHCP worked, like when I was doing network architecture and network engineering, I was closely researching like how DHCP worked, how could I reconstruct DHCP in the network, and it's you know, first in, first out kind of thing. Basically, if you've got multiple DHCP servers on your network, whichever one responds the fastest is the one that you respond to. And so I was like, well, if you were to put up this malicious DHCP server and it responded first, you could essentially wipe out a whole or own a whole bunch of systems on the network. I like that. Was this the one? No. And then there was another one in Linux and BSD operating systems that had to do with x.org, X servers. Mm-hmm. And this one, I think, well, other people, maybe not we as security people, think of OpenBSD as being a really secure operating system. In this case, the vulnerability was more exploitable in X on OpenBSD than it was in any other Linux systems. Like the default permissions made it more exploitable in OpenBSD. And this was one where you could just remotely connect and basically run commands or privileged escalate, on OpenBSD systems, whereas other Linux systems had it configured so that you had to be physically connected to a terminal, not over the network, was that one. So we covered these in Hack Naked News. There was two different kind of Linux BSD vulnerabilities.
Yet another reason to love Systemd.
Unless you're running DHCP.
Wait.
Oh, wait. You love Systemd because of the DHCP vulnerability. Right.
Yep.
I'm also just soapbox really annoyed that in every Linux system upgrade, they slightly change how you've always done certain administrative tasks. Like, it used to be you could run NSLOOKUP and ifconfig, and when you need to change where your DNS server is, or you need to change just basic things, in every damn upgrade, they change it to something totally different. And don't explain why. Like, what's the reason why? I mean, we talk about this on BSW that, you know, as a leader, when you're pushing change, explaining why really helps, right? And Linux distributions are just like changing shit for the sake of changing shit and not explaining why. I'm like, why is it that when I went to go set a static IP address, it's completely different now in this version of the operating system than the previous one. It drives me insane.
Oh, and even better, not only is it different, they've changed the interface names, so they're no longer ETH0 and ETH1.
Right?
They're all ETH MAC address. I'm like, how are my scripts going to work now?
You got to understand that as like Linux and Unix administrators, we really don't like to type. I mean, that's why we have things like up arrow and command line completion, because we hate typing. And when you change all this shit, now the interface names are longer. Now also,
and they're randomized, and they're different per device.
And when I got to figure out how to do something, now I have to open up a web browser and do more typing into Google to figure out what I need to do the same shit that I knew worked in the previous version.
And when you try to set it back to the old way, the right way as God intended it,
right?
It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
No, doesn't. I'm never upgrading again.
Right? I just want to change my DNS servers. Oh, that's different now. I'm like, why is that different? How is that making my life better that it's in a different spot? Yep. Sorry, I'm off my soapbox.
All of that stuff CentOS?
What's that?
All of that stuff happened to you with CentOS?
Mostly Debian is what I work with. Debian and Ubuntu. Raspbian does the same thing. I think they all do it, Carlos.
Yeah, with CentOS, what I hate is that no longer default install Netstat. Config is not there. You have to do IP show address or IP address or something like that.
he doesn't even know.
Right? I mean, that's nice because IP is shorter than other commands, and again, less typing is good. But yeah, I mean, host is shorter than NSLOOKUP, which is good. But like, it just changes way too much.
Shorter than host.
We sound like really curmudgeon-y old Linux Unix people right now. I just need to grow my big gray beard back, and then it'll just be so fitting.
Me strokes his beard, right?
I need to grow my CTO gray beard.
Yeah. And now that IBM owns CentOS, let's see what happens there.
What? Well, Red Hat and CentOS?
Well, yeah, Red Hat bought CentOS. So
right.
If IBM owns Red Hat pretty soon, they'll own Ansible, CentOS, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That means that will they try to block Oracle?
I think what I really want to see is them take some concepts from AIX and apply that to Red Hat. And I really want, I forget what the name of the administrative program was in AIX, though. I don't know if you remember this. There was a little running man. So, like, while the command was running, there'd be this guy, like, running. And if your command was successful, he'd go like this and put his arms up. And if your command had an error, he would fall down flat on his face. It was awesome. What was that called? I've talked about this on the show before. What was that called? Carlos, do you remember? Oh, you work for HP, not IBM. But does anyone remember what that was?
But I just finished an instant response on IX. No.
And you want to talk about...
The question is, why?
You want to talk about a Unix operating system that does things completely different from everything else, go look at AIX, right? I think that's part of the painful expression on your face right now.
Oh, and HPUX does the same.
Oh, yeah. They both did. Yeah.
Right.
And if you're really want some pain, DGUX.
Yes.
That's where I cut my teeth.
Yeah, I didn't.
264 behaved like Linux. I like 264.
We're showing our age now. We're just old curmudgeon Unix. You know what?
I mean, I'm showing it. My hair has slipped off my head and is now on my face. The next place is lower on my butt.
But all of the things we're talking about stem from the chart I used to have in my office, where it's the lineage of all the different Unix environments came from. I think I want to resurrect that and get that back in my office because it's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we get a plotter?
Let me hide my bald spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carlos, I gave up on that. Embrace the suck, my friend.
Yes.
Just let it slip down your face. It's like all good.
Now what are we going to cover? Oh, you want to cover that one?
Resume?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk about this one.
I love this one because I want to evaluate myself against it.
Yeah, and I think Lee, being in the industry, is as long as he has, may have some valuable insights on resumes. Not that he's had to submit a lot of them, but he's probably reviewed a lot.
So the first one, 9 traits of a strong InfoSec resume, right? First one is show your whole story. I've been in this industry a long time. That's a long-ass resume, first
Yeah.
of all. Nobody wants to read that many pages.
And that was the thing that we always learned growing up, was that your resume should be 1 page. If you've been a veteran, no more than 2.
Right.
Like, my resume is like 12 pages now. Like,
If you have to tell your whole story,
If you have to tell your whole story, it's long. How many recruiters are going to go back?
I did an interview with the IT career podcast with Zach. We'll post a link when he sends it to us when it posts. And he was asking me, like, basically about my career and the history behind it, and it took me a while to explain it. I mean, I told stories in there and stuff, but like you said, Matt, like that takes, if you've been in the industry 10 plus years, most of us are 15 plus years.
I'm over
more,
20,
right? Yeah, and some of us over 20. That's a long story.
22 years, and yeah, I mean, that's a long resume. So that was number 1. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, not sure that's great advice.
Number 2, varied experience is good experience. I don't disagree with this. I mean, look, my career was consulting early on. Then I became a product guy and done all this other stuff. So, yeah, varied experience I think is good. I like agree
people
with this one.
I like people with diverse backgrounds.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily have to be, even in technology or even more specifically security. I like people with generic statement, diverse backgrounds, right? Because they bring a lot of different experiences to the table that they can relate to the problems and or challenges that we have today.
Right.
Right.
Yep. So we were reviewing our resume recently, as in this morning. And the diverse background went from like help desk to sysadmin to a large company to security person to pen tester. And I'm like, that guy.
Yep.
I want that guy.
Even diversified in IT is good. I even like to see some diversification outside of IT as well.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of number 3. Non-security expertise can help.
Yep.
Right? If you're bringing somebody who doesn't think like the rest of some of us security guys, bringing new ideas and other expertise in, I think is helpful as well. I don't necessarily...
Sam has a degree in accounting, which means she's really good with spreadsheets. I'm just kidding.
She is.
That brings a lot more to the table than just spreadsheets. But
and usually you think of accountants as being really boring people, and Sam is far from boring.
Far from it.
Yep.
Yes.
Number 4, operational experience matters. Hell yes.
Yes.
You've got to have
pay
some
your time, pay your dues.
Absolutely. You got to have your hands dirty somewhere.
Man, Boris Svederlik would be an expert.
Right. So the number 4 was good. 5, let's see. A college degree, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Look, one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with, Sean Malloy, he didn't finish.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
He truly is one of the most talented
I'm just
cloud engineers on the planet. Yeah.
I mean, I'll put him up against almost but
Sean worked at Tenable with Matt and I. And you worked with Sean.
I hired Sean in 2005 to be my chief architect at Control Path, my startup.
Right. It goes even,
Then we went to Qualys together.
Yeah.
Then we brought him to Tenable. He didn't finish. He didn't have to finish. He was out coding. Look, degrees don't matter, right?
Yeah, I agree.
When you have the expertise that somebody like that has, I don't care if you have a college degree or not. You can definitely run circles around other people. And look, I've got a degree in electrical engineering, computer engineering. I haven't used my computer engineering skills since I think I graduated in '96 with my master's, right? I mean, that's how. Okay, it might help for the first job, but it doesn't necessarily help with the rest of your career. So, so I agree with that.
The only thing a previous employer ever said to me was that finishing your degree proves that you're committed to a long project.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, I kind of really want that promotion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that should be, promotions, I believe, is based on performance, not necessarily a degree, right?
Correct. And look,
clearly I can get promoted at Security Weekly because, well, that place
that just
not
gets
so
you,
much.
I did. How many congratulations I didn't get on my promotion today? I went from podcast personality to CEO. See, it's possible.
All that gets you is more cigars and booze.
Exactly. We're going to
firm handshake.
We're going to keep them coming. 6, I like a lot. People skills. I think this is really, really important for those of you that are coming in. The ability to communicate, talk to people, explain problems, understand problems. People skills are super important. Especially as you move up. CISOs, they have to do this all the time.
All the time.
All the time,
That's
right?
why we realized Business Security Week was so popular with CISOs, because we were talking about leadership and communications.
Yes.
And this every single day a challenge for
Because
the CISOs to be able to effectively lead and effectively communicate with so many different
people. You're walking into a board meeting now as a CISO, and you've got the finance guys there, you've got auditors there, you have all kinds of other people. They don't understand that, okay, I have 47,000 vulnerabilities I need to solve. They want to know why, what's the risk, what kind of budget you need. I mean, just the way you communicate is a super important skill.
But not limited to CISOs. What I tell everyone at Security Weekly, for an example, and if you run a company or part of a company, everyone should be able to effectively communicate the company goals and the mission and what we do.
Yep.
And I don't care if that's, our awesome UPS delivery person, Tony, being able to understand what we do, or when we're at a conference and people are asking you what we do, everyone in the organization has to have those baseline communications.
Here's what your UPS guy knows.
I think
you like cigars because he's always
he's a cigar guy. Yeah, he's a cigar guy. We give Tony cigars all the time.
And I think Jason and maybe Lee had some comments here, specifically on that communication thing.
Go ahead, Lee.
Okay. The one thing I was going to mention is on the thing a college degree gets you on the resume, aside from the finishing the project, is there's a certain amount of rounding that happens, and diversity. So you get somebody without, you got to make sure they've got some diversity of experience and points of view.
Yeah, I agree.
Self-taught folks are really awesome, but if all they know in the world is Unix, it's going to be hard for them to think outside the box.
I agree, Lee. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yep.
And the other thing on the operational experience, if you haven't been involved with, the business side, trying to, provide dead-on reliable applications and the pain it is to go through all the regression testing on patching, you don't understand the pushback when you see a critical vulnerability and they tell you no way in hell can they patch right now, but they'll get back to you on the 12th of never. I mean, I know the cloud SaaS model changes that a lot, and that's a good thing, but there's still lots of legacy out there where, the care and feeding of that system is somebody's life work. And once you understand how they walk, you can have a much better conversation about securing it.
Agreed. Because we have a tendency to be the team that always says, no, you can't do that.
Right.
We need to understand why and how best to address the concerns we have with what they're trying to accomplish from a business perspective, and that requires good communication skills. Number 7, for the CISO, know how things tie together. Agree here too, right?
Might even argue for your average security practitioner.
Yes, agreed, Larry.
Yep.
Someone needs to take the opposite. Someone needs to argue the opposite side in this one. We're all in way too much agreement.
So what's the next one?
Matt Toussaint's still here with us. Matt, you've been silent observer.
This one's for Matt.
Sure,
this one's for Matt.
Oh yeah, this one's for Matt.
Number 8's for Matt. For the coder, Python.
Ooh,
It goes for Paul too.
I do like Python.
Do you mean like which language to pick?
No, it's saying that for programmers, understanding Python will help you in your career, because a lot of people still use it. I think it's just because it gives you the foundation of programming language and stuff. So they're saying if you're a coder, Python is kind of like that base language that you should just know.
It's like Perl was like 100 years ago.
Yeah. When I'm teaching for SANS, I always say that like 5 years ago, it wasn't necessarily a mandatory skill for anyone in InfoSec to be able to do some kind of scripting. But I think that's changing. I think that's maybe ship's already sailed on that, and it's changed, especially when you have so many new folks entering the community, and that's fantastic. But at the same time, it generates a bit of a weird culture, and I mean everyone's seen it. Where you've got there's a guru in the office, and thou shalt not contradict the guru, and everyone else stands around and watches over his shoulder, hoping maybe to glean via osmosis some of his knowledge. But I think if you can do a little bit of coding, a little bit of scripting, you can take a lot of the tasks that you would generally do, and you can give those to somebody who's newer. And then trusting them with that gives them the opportunity to be a little bit more curious, to pick up things, to grow, and to build. And so when I'm teaching for SANS, I always ask who's been here in InfoSec for more than 5 years, and I get a couple hands. But when I ask who's been here in InfoSec for less than a year, it's normally half of the class, and that's wonderful. But it does come with a couple extra challenges. And I think programming in some way, shape, or form really, really helps to solve some of those and bridge that gap. Is it Python? I actually don't think so. I think Python's probably not the best language for people to pick up. But at the same time, I always say that there's only one programming language, and it's logic. Once you can do logic, once you can reason your way through a problem, if this, then that, continue going through this data structure until you get to the right answer, it doesn't really matter which language you've picked up to do that. I think Python's a really, really easy one to pick up. So if you've got a problem, that problem is, hey, I only have a certain amount of time, I only have a certain amount of willpower to put into learning this, I think Python's a great option. But at the same time, when do you get to use Python? If you're a Unix administrator, all the time. If you're on a Windows operating system, you want to work with Windows systems, are you going to really see and use Python on a day-to-day basis all the time? And the answer may or may not be true. In the case of penetration testers, I recommend PowerShell. Not because it's the easiest language, not because it's the prettiest language. Thank you, Microsoft, for your greater than -GT. It's the equality statements in PowerShell are just silly. But at the same time, it's always there. And I think that matters too.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, and you know that those statements came from a Open RFP, and they actually adopted that from Bash. Bash uses the same operators.
I was going to say, yes, Bash definitely uses the same operators.
Bash
but
is even worse.
I think Bash is pretty horrible once you get to a certain point. But I think you need to, even if it is Bash, and I kind of along the lines of what Matt's saying, I do love Python, right, as a programming language, but...
Oh, good. I'm glad you qualified that.
Thank you. You need to, just because you're here, I had to qualify that, Larry. Yes. So, but you need to be able to write in a programming language that can automate the tasks in your job, right? So we just took on a new intern here. He's like, I was just manually sorting that data in a spreadsheet. I'm like, that was one line in a Bash command, and so we'll sit down and I'll teach you that. And it really speaks to how you can increase your productivity in a technical role using any kind of programming language. And like what Matt was saying, once you learn one, it's pretty easy to transfer to the other ones once you have that logic down.
Yeah.
Unless
it's Java.
Yeah, and
unless it's Java.
It's a very simple rule. Don't join any language religion. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
I started college in Pascal, RPG, COBOL, and nowadays I code in Python, Ruby, C#, PowerShell. In fact, I've been teaching PowerShell now for 8 years. I've been teaching PowerShell at DerbyCon and other conferences and private customers. And I owe it all to one professor in my first year of computer science, Lilian Braz. What she did was that she went like, hey, Carlos, I'm taking 10 points. You have a B now. And I'm like, why? You're using 8K of extra memory. And it was a logic class. And she was kind of like, you're using 8K. You're wasting 8K here. Or your algorithm's not optimized. And we have to do everything in flowcharts. And I owe so much to her because now I can just grab any language. I can just go like, okay, what are the operators? What is the logic operators to do this stuff? How the functions work, just get a bit of the basics, and then I just can start rolling from there on. And the problem is that when at work, when I hear people go like, oh, Ruby sucks, or or Perl sucks, I start losing respect for that pen tester, red teamer so fast because he joined a religion. He went to and he's going to have like 2 blinders when it comes to then adapt in a true engagement of customer environment.
It's like my former intern, now employee. We had a discussion about what language they were going to write the tool in. And it actually turned into a 4-hour conversation about which language was going to be best represented. And it came down to that she said, I think this would probably be best suited in Go, and I don't know Go. So this is an opportunity for me to learn Go.
Yep.
Well,
And this is the beauty of containers, because now you can program in multiple languages to
It
create
doesn't matter,
applications.
right.
Now it doesn't matter, right? You can use the best language for the right service that you're trying to build. It doesn't matter. So having more languages under your belt is always good. I just thought it was interesting they identified Python here.
and just because it's popular.
Yeah.
So when you read other projects, you're going to be able to understand what they're doing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, once you get more experience, you're a couple of years into your career, the question becomes like, what project has the best library, and is that library updated for me to use this?
And it won't be PHP.
And more than likely, Perl neither.
True.
But to Carlos's point, PHP works great for prototyping something.
It does. But it's also got a bajillion vulnerabilities
Yeah,
that haven't
but
been
you have to
solved,
know
so the
that-
library is way out of date.
Right, but you have to know that going into it. So
Yeah, true. Last one. Love this one. Above all, be honest. And I think this, if anybody knows me and have ever worked with me, honesty is key, right? And I'm a persister when it comes to kind of my personality, right? I believe in what I believe in, but you're always going to get it from me straight. Love me, hate me. I'm always going to tell you where I'm just going to be honest, right? And I think this goes a long way to building credibility with your peers, your superiors. It's just honesty, right? And I think sometimes some of us forget that some days. I thought this one was just a really interesting trait to pull out here.
I just want to say, not from a technical perspective, but having been very involved with the sales process, which thankfully now Matt's going to take more of a lead role in, I'm always very honest when people ask me questions, right? And they'll say, you know, hey, we're doing this call. Is this like, are you selling us something, or are you doing a preview? I'm like, it's both. I'm like, I'll be honest. And if they ask me, you're like, how'd you find us? I'm like, be honest, like I'm targeting you because I think you're potentially a great fit for the show, and that's why I'm here to learn more. And like, we're here because, I'll be honest, I saw your funding announcement, right? Like, let's I'm not gonna mince words, right? I hate to be like an accident jumper, but if someone believed in you enough to give you, let's say, $5 million or $8 million, then you obviously have technology that's interesting. And if someone's willing to pony up $5 to $8 million is a lot of money. I mean, even if your seed round is $500,000, think about how much money that is. Like, take a step back from the, you know, the industry side and all the money that might be investing. That's a lot of money. Someone believed in you enough to invest in your company. Therefore, that might come up on my radar. So I agree, Matt, in all aspects of the way we work, in whether it's in sales or technology, you know, honesty, marketing,
all of it, right? All of it.
Marketing especially.
Yeah, especially marketing people, right? Just be honest, right? Understand the problem you're trying to solve, who are you trying to get to, what are your true differentiator? Be honest about it, right?
Lies, and fucking lies. Wait, no.
Look, at a certain point, you can't figure out which lie trumps which other lie, right? At the end of the day, it's just, if you're honest all the time, there's no debate.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought this was a really interesting one they put on here, right?
And don't try and lie in your resume.
No.
Dude, that's just never. If you get in front of any one of us that's sitting here on this show today and you've put something on your resume, any one of us are going to be able to ask that question and just know if you're lying on your resume or not. Like, it's so not worth it.
Lee and Jason and they're just like, no.
Right? Like, when
it's game over.
Yeah, we've all interviewed people, right? That you're like, you're lying, right?
Yep.
We won't say you're lying.
If you catch somebody lying in an interview, it's game over.
Yep.
They're out.
Yep.
Done. Instantly.
Yep. And to that, being honest and genuine, I will also add to the interview thing, and I'd add that if you don't know the answer to a question in an interview, say so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And more importantly, I don't know the answer to that, but I know who I'd call. I know where I'd try to find an answer.
Tried to find the answer, yeah.
I know how you wouldn't, just like with life, I wouldn't say that there's a problem unless I could offer an answer. It may not be the right answer, but it would be something that may get that problem down the road.
Or you may say, I know these other things that might relate to that topic, but to get to that answer, like Larry said, I would ask this person, do this research kind of thing. Yeah.
And a couple other tips for people who are interviewing,
Just
right?
a tip.
be prepared to answer the really hard questions like, where are your weaknesses?
Yeah.
Because they're going to ask, and you better be prepared. Because it's going to come up in every single interview.
I'm too persistent.
What have you not done well? Where has been a mistake you've
what's
made?
What's your biggest failure?
Right, your biggest failure.
I hate those questions.
You just have to be prepared to answer that truthfully, because
and
if you can, then people are like, oh, okay, I understand. So you can't be afraid of those kind of questions, because you're going to get them, and you're going to have an answer.
We can smell the bullshit answers.
Yeah.
Like, what's the thing you're worst at? Oh, I think the thing I'm worst at is communicating too well, and like
I'm too persistent.
I'm
is
too
what
persistent.
You said earlier. That's really funny.
No, those are bullshit answers. What are you really worst at?
Mm-hmm.
Good. And also have forward-looking answers too. You know, where you see yourself in 5 years. Really have a real answer. Not, well, if I'm working here, it'll be cool. I'll still be here. No, that's the blowing smoke answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Because if you're there after 3 years, it's a miracle in most cases. I'm serious. I mean, look, we don't hang at jobs anymore, right? I mean, the industry is so competitive. People are moving. People know you've got aspirations to do something else. Just be truthful about it, right? In 3 years, 4 years, I want to be doing this, right? It shows that you have goals and a vision of where you want to be in your career. Be ready to answer that question, and it's not going to be like, well, I'm going to still be sitting here doing Unix admin for you, so I'm happy. No, if your goals are more, tell them what those goals are. Yeah.
Larry, I want to talk about embedding video in Word documents.
Oh yeah.
I thought this was a pretty cool attack vector, although I think in general we've gotten better at detecting document-based malware, although I don't know how well this would pass the test of, I'm sending you a Word doc, it doesn't have macros, but it's got an embedded video in it.
Right. And it's not so much an embedded video, it's like embedded
it's like an embedded link to YouTube that when you can call a YouTube video.
It's an embed to an online video.
Right.
So it's not actually putting the video into the document.
It's like an iframe tag for a Word doc.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's as of now 3 days ago, it was unpatched.
Yep.
Yes, for phishing engagement today.
It's been a year for those. Did you see in February with the Olympics, the North Koreans were embedding Flash into Excel documents, using that as part of their phishing campaigns. That was the vulnerability, but Flash, yay.
Yeah, it's very similar.
The big ass spider just ran across the floor.
That is a big ass spider.
It was like the size of a friggin' quarter.
Wow, it liked Matt too. It did. Matt's chair.
I'm the arachnophobe.
Yeah, well, one of the things to remember with all of this document types is that most of the security products out there actually trigger this stuff in a sandbox. So if you take that into consideration and you custom your document, your payload, knowing that it's going to be executed in a sandbox, more than likely you can just attach whatever you want into the document. At least that has been my experience.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. I think there's still a lot of space for document-based malware and attacks, particularly in certain weird document types. Like OneNote is a great example of this. OneNote is installed with Office Suite. Sometimes it's installed even without Office Suite because Microsoft really wants to beat out Evernote. So you send somebody a .1 file. OneNote doesn't actually have protected view. So there's a lot of these things that you would you build some kind of custom protection based off of, but something like OneNote just opts out? Or is it something that there's been enough research done by that vendor or EDR product in order to find or whatever it might be? So I think long-term document-based attacks might actually grow as opposed to detract.
Yeah, and many times the only thing you have to do is you got to look at the patterns of use of the applications. For example, as you mentioned OneNote, one of the things with OneNote is that it's a note-taking application. That one of its strengths and one of the things that Microsoft's always touting is that you copy stuff into it. So I copy text files, I copy pictures into it, I copy videos, I copy Word documents, Excel documents, and then I trigger those from there. So when it comes to triggering other stuff from it, they're not going to change that behavior because they're going to break the application. They're going to cause friction with the user, and they don't want to go there. So you can abuse that, for example, lateral movement. If we look at Windows Defender attack surface reduction, specifically rules for Office, OneNote is excluded. So if I go and via COM objects, I instantiate OneNote, and then I trigger my executable under OneNote, ASR simply goes like, okay, you can run it, and it won't block it.
Other stories anyone had?
You had more. I
did. I don't know. Yeah,
we've had
there's been a lot.
few, so yeah.
Yep. I'm good.
I'm good. I'm pretty. There's other stories in there if you want to go read them. wiki.securityweekly.com. Thank you, everyone.
And this happens regularly. We don't get to all the stories.
That's right. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Larry, take us out.
Over and out.